think I had the output resolution set wrong, so I just had to restart the stream. So I've got my telescope sitting outside. The mount's controlled by ASCOM, and I've got two cameras on it. One camera is a wide field, gives sort of like a finder scope view, and the other camera is in the telescope, and that's a only like half a degree field of view. So I can use those two cameras with the almost as like virtual star hopping, as if I were outside with the scope. It's a little more fun than GoTo, because this particular mount that I have is pretty sloppy and the GoTos are pretty inaccurate, so it's really handy to have this second wide field camera to sort of hop back on course. So right now I have telescopes pointed at Regulus, and when we check the cameras agree. So the mount's physically pointing where it thinks it is, so it's a good sign. So now using the star chart program, you can try and hop to a nearby galaxy. You can see that there's some over here. Pick one of these, select it, telescope slew, and with any luck the telescope should move, which doesn't appear to be doing. Let's try that again. Telescope slew. Alrighty then. Check the connection. It says it's slewing, which is concerning. If I check the camera feed, it's definitely not slewing. It says we're connected. Hope it stays that way. Now it's moving. You can see a little stick right there, pretty close to a tree. Let me maximize this view. I'm going to adjust this so it's not as noisy. I'll adjust the histogram stretch just so it looks a little nicer too. Looks like I could use a little more exposure. I'm going to increase the gain instead, just so I have a quick refresh on it. Now I did take a flat field to correct, which I've never used before, so I'll try it. You can see there's a little bit of vignetting on the corners of the field. So this is the first time I've tried to use flats. I'll see if it works out for me. Apparently not. Oh well. Let's check the telescope. We'll increase the exposure and see if we're on target or not. I've had recently did some work on the telescope and I haven't gone back and adjusted the backlash on everything, so its go-tos are pretty sloppy. So we definitely have something right there. And it looks like it's slightly elongated this and right in the center. So increase the exposure. I'm looking at the histogram. I want this sort of peak to come off the left edge. I don't want to lose any data. Strange. I'm not sure the histogram is updating. Strange. There we go. Now the histogram showing what it looks like. So now I've got a decent exposure. I can start the live stacking. So this will take the individual 8-second exposures, align the individual exposures to the stars, and then start to average out the noise. You can see frames stacked here. So we've got 2 8-second exposures, and as they continue to roll in, it should start smoothing out, and then we can start stretching the histogram using this tool. So if I try and stretch it now, you can see how noisy it looks. That's a cool looking galaxy. Looks like it's a barred spiral maybe. So I tried to take a flat for this camera earlier, but you can see how much sort of the light falls off on this edge. And I took one, but for whatever reason SharpCap wouldn't save it, so we're going to have to go without it. It's a little annoying that the light falls off so severely on that edge, but oh well. And before I forget, I usually try and label what it is we're looking at so that when I save the file, I'll remember. So we're looking at M95 in Leo. You can see it's 3 of them right next to each other, so we'll sort of hop from one to the other, take pictures of them, take a look at them, see how much detail we can pull out. So now we have 15 stacked frames, about 2 minutes. You can definitely see it has some shape to it. A bar almost looks like a ring with a bar across. And you can turn on pictures in this, sort of cheat a little and see what a better telescope would resolve. So it definitely agrees with what we're seeing. All those little red circles are teeny tiny galaxies in the background. We'll see if see how many of those show up in my picture. Probably not all of them, but definitely some. I like to keep the three views representing sort of the telescope's field of view, the finder scope's field of view, and then as if you're standing out there with your eyes. Select this chart, make it 20 degrees. So by pushing the gray level or mid-level to the left toward the black level, you start to emphasize the sort of dim, low brightness details. But if you push it too much, it gets pretty ugly. But as we start to stack more and more frames and accumulate sort of more data and get better averages of every pixel, then we can start to push it more aggressively, and this ugly noise will start fading away. It looks like there's an outer extension, just barely see it there, and then an inner one and a bar. At this point I just play around in the settings until I can either see more detail or I like the look of it. So you can see how annoying that vignetting is, where the whole right side essentially falls off. I wish I could get flat frames working in SharpCap, but oh well. Oh yeah, before I forget, gotta label it. M95. So now, down in the options here, I can sort of save a snapshot of the stacking process. So in the future, I can go back and sort of, almost like an observing log, see all the stuff that I looked at throughout the night. I'm really surprised how well the mount centered that. I was expecting less. So if we get into trouble later, we'll be able to actually use the wide field camera. Looks like the galaxies aren't showing up in it, but you can still use it to star hop by referencing the chart here. So for example, you can see a bright star here, here, and there. And in the finder scope, you look for them, there's one there, there, and there. Might be a little confusing with all the galaxies showing, but you can hide those. Looks like I also have a bit of dust on my secondary or something. So now I really wish I had flat frame subtraction working. Oh well. I'll play around with the settings, see if I can pull any more detail out of it. So pushing it this extreme, the picture doesn't look great, but you can start to see that outermost extension better. That's not the best looking picture, but you can basically just use the camera as an observing tool. Zoom in on it and see if it looks any better. So right now I'm operating this through a remote desktop. So I'm inside on a computer, and basically the desktop of the computer that's outside is being streamed to my indoor computer, and then through a program called OBS I'm streaming that to YouTube. So all this imagery is getting sort of compressed and decompressed and streamed twice. So hopefully it looks okay on your end. But that's looking pretty cool. It's almost like a batarang. But you can see it's still pretty gritty and noisy. So as more frames come in, it should smooth out. Actually, one thing I didn't do is apply a dark frame, which helps reduce the sort of hot pixels or amp glow in the camera. This particular camera is not too bad. It's pretty tame, but my color camera gets pretty colorful, and there's a big light gradient going across it, so it's really useful. That's really cool. Almost feels like a Pokeball. Move on to another one. I'll do one last adjustment to see if I can get it to look any better or eke out more detail. Yeah, I'll take that. So here's exactly as seen. Now, doesn't matter if I do this before or after I move the telescope, but I like to cut the exposure down to short exposures that help frame. So you can see that you don't see nearly as much detail, but now it's refreshing every 2 seconds. Just helps get the target centered. So we'll go to M96 right next door. See if it'll move the first time. So the telescope moved, and we definitely have something fuzzy in field. Looks like it's up there, so we'll have to nudge the telescope until it's in view. I always get this upside down and backwards, so it'll probably take me a couple tries. We'll see. Is north the right way? No. Oh no, that was the right way. We'll let it settle. Oh, this will be fun. You can see a tiny adjustment sent it from there to there. That's how bad the backlash is on this mount. I took apart the motor and belt drive and reassembled it, but I never retuned the backlash, so it's pretty bad right now. So what I need to do is I need to move it way farther than I think I need to move it. And then when I move the other way, the backlash will be on top of that. Let's see. Unless I really messed it up. There it is. Yeah, I'll make smaller adjustments, try not to lose it. Forget which way I was going, south I think. That's weird. I wish the mount controller was a little easier to use. It's pretty clunky having to select fixed distances from a drop down and sort of iteratively click it. I wish it was sort of a rate of motion and then just click and hold. It'd be a lot more intuitive to use. But it looks pretty well centered here, so I'll go back to the camera control and increase the exposure back to 8 seconds. We'll just check the histogram, make sure that the peak is off the edge. That looks pretty good. Now we can start the live stack. So the old live stack is still sort of in memory. So you can see it's now we've got ignored frames rolling in. It's because it's trying to take this new star field and align it to the old one, and it can't solve, so it's just throwing an error. So what I have to do is clear it. Now the first frame that comes in will be sort of the key for alignment, and all the other frames will be aligned to that. And before I forget, I want to rename it to 96. But you can see how sort of noisy this looks right now with only 2 frames. As more and more frames get stacked in averages, it'll sort of clear up and smooth out. Looks like maybe another barred spiral. Hopefully the stream looks okay. The preview of it doesn't look great. Actually, it looks like it's down res to 720. I might have to restart it at a different resolution. Well, it doesn't look too bad. It's not ideal. Trial by fire, I guess. I'll keep going. Can't tell if this is another sort of faint extension. So we'll sort of push the histogram and try and stretch it. I wonder if that's a background galaxy. So we can go to the star chart. Check the field. So there's a lot of, these labels are pretty distracting, so I'll turn them off. Here we go. So one thing I haven't done is to check whether or not my telescope camera is the right way up. So I'll look for some stars in the field, see if we can find them on the camera. So the galaxy has a brighter star to its right, and then above that's another bright star that makes almost a little crucifix. We'll see if we can find that. Might be easiest to do side by side. Not that one. So I've got the star chart in the background and the frame in the foreground, and now we can sort of directly compare. Not seeing it. Although I can definitely see that this one is sort of tilted and elongated in this direction, whereas the star chart showing the tilt in that direction. So we're either 180 rotated or we're horizontally mirrored. Yeah, I think I see it. So this star, that star, and the cross, almost like an upside down cross. I can see it right there. So I have to mirror the view in sharp cap next time I get a chance. If I do it now, the stack will fail because it's not smart enough to mirror the stack that's been running. It only mirrors the incoming frames. But it definitely looks like there's an extension out there. Almost like a faint ring of star forming activity. I just saw your comments there, Chris. The focuser in this, well, first the secondary mirror on this cheap Meade mini light bridge, I couldn't get any of the collimation screws to move. I think they either Loctited them or super glued them in place. I started skipping teeth on the Allen wrench and using the properly sized Phillips for the central bolt. I couldn't get it to move. But luckily the secondary is pretty well aligned. And the very fine adjustments that I need to do, I can do just by sort of bending it a little bit. It's not ideal, but it works. So I'm not entirely sure why the vignetting is so offset. So I assume there's something either non-ideal placement of the secondary or the cheap focuser isn't centered. I should probably use maybe a Cheshire eyepiece or a collimation tool would help. I haven't sort of delved into it too deeply. And I'm probably gonna, after this object, I'll reboot the stream, see if I can get it to go to 1080p. I think YouTube is optimized for sort of pushing that through, so hopefully it'll look smoother and better. Well, this is looking pretty good. I might save it off. Well, I'll try and push it a little farther. So maybe I'll also increase my bit rate if the so as you're saying, when I make adjustments on the histogram, if the whole thing's looking pretty bad, I wonder if it's due to low bit rate. I'll zoom in as I'm doing this. I don't think I'm guessing I can't make those adjustments on the fly using OBS. I have to sort of restart. It doesn't take that long. Looks like I got pretty good detail right there. Sort of a high contrast, crisp, bright edge. Can't tell if that's a compression error in my remote desktop or if that's a dark dust lane. So maybe we'll check the image in Carte du Ciel. It looks like it's too bright to even see. I guess I could pull up a reference image. It's a little weird because the computer that's outside that I'm currently remote desktoping into doesn't have internet connection, so to pull up a picture I'd have to bring a browser over to the window that's being streamed. Let me try and find a reference picture of M96. That's a rifle. Not the M96 I was looking for. So I think I'm seeing that dark dust lane right there. Sort of that shadow on that side. Again, my view is mirrored left to right. So it should be over here. That's pretty cool. And you can see the sort of bright star forming region right there is showing up. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'll save this. Save exactly as seen. I'll go into stop the live stack. Go into my camera driver and then look for flipping. So just needed the horizontal flip, I think. Looks like maybe my focus is shifting or just really bad collimation. The stars look a little coma-y. Okay, so I'm gonna change more. So maybe the camera was set up for the other side of the meridian. That's one thing I found in SharpCap. Unfortunately, the darks and lights don't rotate when you rotate the camera. So looking through my old pictures, I guess when I started using the German equatorial mount, I found out I had that problem where I'd have, you know, overly brightened amp glow on one side and then the amp glow subtracted from the other side, so it was almost worse than nothing. Just check the star chart again. So I've got a bright star here and there, and then two bright stars like that. Yep, so now in the right orientation. I'm going to stop the stream, try and get it to 1080p a little more bit rate, and restart. It should only take maybe 5 minutes or so.